Welcome to episode 1 of Freedom Haven Today, a monthly podcast on the latest updates of the ongoing Freedom Haven project, what we've accomplished last month, and what we have planned for this month and onward, various subjects of interest, and how you can help. You can find us online at www.freedomhaven.org, on Facebook, Discord, and several other social media platforms. A 90-second intro video is also linked in the description below. Naturally, as imperfect human beings, we reserve the right to correct any mistakes that we make. We are not paid for our efforts, but if you'd like to support the Freedom Haven project itself, consider making a $5 donation to the project on our website. Links are in the description. Today, our member spotlight is Alex Saraftis from Greece. Alex, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Tony.
Tell us a little about yourself.
Well, you could say I joined Freedom Haven after a lot of thought. Actually, I found you on YouTube, and then you kind of stuck as the main person, as the main project that kept us updated. Other projects don't seem to communicate with their community quite as much as you do, Tony. I will be assuming the role of your host until I die, or until someone more qualified shows up.
If you enjoy this podcast, please comment, like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to click that little bell icon so that you'll be notified when the next podcast is released.
Really, guys, it's really helping. Especially the YouTube algorithm loves commenting, sharing if you wish, but these really help to get the video out, to gather the community of like-minded individuals. So yeah, do that. Thank you for your attention. So Tony, tell us what exactly did you have in mind when you decided to build this, or not to build, to begin designing the ship? What exactly was going through your mind?
Well, we were trying to find a solution for people who are looking for freedom all around the world, specifically here in America. There were a number of projects like the Free State Project, which attempted to gather a bunch of people who believed in freedom in one location, and that would give them more voice in a vote in a location that has a low population, so that they can make that area more freedom, more pro-freedom. And it's still ongoing, and I wish them lots of luck, but it wasn't producing the results that me and my friend Nathan were hoping for. And so we were also talking about a couple of different technologies, about tiny homes, and about container ships, and all that kind of came together in one discussion one day. And we realized, wait a second, what if we took a container ship and used tiny home technologies and turned it into a floating city, essentially? And we're like, wow, and then we could have that outside of government jurisdiction, and we could have freedom. And this project went through several iterations. This project started, that was 4 years ago. So we've been working on this for 4 years, and had many iterations of the design. We first started out with different kinds of structures, and then as we learned about all the science behind it, we realized that wouldn't work, this wouldn't work, and we got more mature in our designs as the time went on, and also more mature in understanding how the international laws work. We read the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea, which describes that freedom will exist, that the country's jurisdiction ends 200 nautical miles from shore. A lot of people incorrectly think it ends at 12 nautical miles from shore. That's only partially true, and the government still has enough control to basically shut you down if they want to. So it's not really freedom out there. And we've just we're trying to build a city outside of the jurisdiction of existing governments, so that people can have the freedom they're looking for.
Yeah, I actually begun my journey the same way you did. I started looking at thank you, Nomad Capitalist, for go where you're treated best. For those who know. Anyways, so I started looking at first. I as Tony stated, I live in Greece, which is basically the most socialistic country you can live that is Western. So yeah, I'm weighing my options for where I will go in my future. But as Tony stated, I was looking for more freedoms, not only for myself, but also ethically. Speaking about ethics, I mean, I don't want to subsist off of other people's work. And of course, I don't want to be the guy that the state taxes to feed other people. Not feed. Okay, I don't have specifically. It was an example to basically to provide patronage to through politicians. I'm trying to explain it. It's just the words not coming out. Anyways, so after looking into that, I started searching countries with the most freedom, but nothing really satisfied um, my goals. And then I landed on to seasteading, and after a lot of research on it, I ended up with doing a podcast with Tony. Anyways, so I don't have much experience with shipbuilding, but I have looked into um, exclusive economic zones, uh, and all that stuff. So yeah, in my opinion, Tony's project is the most interesting and has kept me in touch, as you can see.
Well, thank you, Alex. I appreciate
All
that.
right, Tony, why don't you tell us what you did? What's the most recent updates?
In March, there are basically four main updates. One thing is we started working on a short story. There are a lot of people who have a difficult time envisioning um, what Freedom Haven would be like, what it's actually like living there, what a
I don't blame
day
them.
of day.
I don't blame
Yeah.
them.
I can see what it looks like. I can envision, basically
Mm.
it's like a cruise ship, except that instead of being mindlessly entertained with fake luxury, people can have whatever it is they're looking for. If people want luxury, they can find luxury. If they want work to be productive and earn money, they can find stuff to be productive. Basically, whatever the people want, the free market would work very hard to compete with other people who are also working very hard to get your business. And so, if you want a job, multiple people would want to be competing to get your work in their company and try to outbid the other person. So basically, it's the best situation for the consumer. Um, but just what that would look like on a daily what would that look like in a daily life of a person living there. So we started
Mhm.
on a short story intended on having one person just go through his life and what his day would look like. Um, but that ended up being too much information for one person. It ended up being like 7 pages long at this point.
Mhm.
And instead, we're thinking about having it be a short story instead, where it's like maybe 7 chapters, each of them being like 2 pages long, really, really short.
Yeah.
And then they all kind of build off of each other, especially because the example I gave is kind of how I envisioned myself living there, which would be kind of atypical. Um, we'll probably start instead with a person having a normal 9 to 5 job, which is what most people could relate to,
Yeah.
and showing what their like work would be like and the advantages and just what the daily life is like there, and
Do
help
you
people
plan
visualize
on
it.
describing this lifestyle, or would you like to talk about it since you brought it up?
Well, uh, like the guy gets out of bed in the morning and just
Mm-hmm.
takes a shower, gets
Okay,
ready for
so
work.
let's I too have my agenda for when the hopefully for when the ship is built. So
Uh-huh.
let's envision both of us. Okay, first of
Okay.
all, your car. Okay, I'm not a big fan of cars, but uh, the no pavement roads, so no roads, guys. We're saved. No need to pay for roads. Now they can't tell us anything. Who would build the roads? Nobody. We don't need them. Okay,
That's
so
true. Like on a cruise ship, you have no need for a road. You have no need for
well,
cars on a cruise ship.
well, technically, you still need someone, or you need a vessel to get supplies, because
Yes.
obviously you're on a ship and you need fuel too. I'm a big fan of bicycles, so Maybe I would get a human powered equivalent, but well, okay.
And
But you know,
the plan is,
yeah, for long distances, this is gonna be a problem, obviously. But
and the plan
yeah.
is that we wouldn't have to go and get supplies ourselves. The supplies would come to us. Our ship
Hmm.
itself would be a port, and we would be close enough to major container shipping lines, and we would have a setup that would allow them to unload and load so quickly, because time is money, that they could just
Yeah.
pass by, add an extra hour to their thing, which is, probably, I don't know, a huge amount of money,
Hmm.
out of their time, but make it efficient and fast enough that they can just stop by. We all load, unload, switch out, and they keep moving, and we're just one of the ports on the way, and we don't take that much out of their time and schedule. And that way, you can
Mm.
still order stuff on Amazon.com or wherever you do online, and it would just take an extra 2 3 days, maybe a week at the most to get to you. But everything still comes to you. You want something, you just order it, or it might be at the local
Yeah.
store.
Yeah. So okay, we got transportation out of the way. Apart from uh, buying, at least buying in bulk or supplies. But you know, you might want something small, or well, most of the stuff I envision will be supplied, will be provided on the ship. But you still need the ship itself, and its inhabitants need to be mindful. Well, of every other problem. Wait, who's gonna actually captain the ship? Who's
We
gonna
will
be
have a
captain of the
full-time
ship?
Yeah, we will have a full-time crew of about 20 people that we paid for out of the leases of the rent. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
we'll have about 4,000 cabins, and at least that's the current plan, is to have about 4,000 cabins. We have a design for it and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and those cabins will cost $65,000, and they'll cover 10 years of lease. So basically, you pay in advance, and that's what we actually use to build the ship. And we set aside the funds. We're estimating $40 million for maintenance and governance for 10 years. So that's $4 million a year. And that would include a staff of 20 people, which would include all the people you need to have security, maintenance, and actually captain the ship. Even though the ship actually won't be going anywhere, we will still have engines to maintain our current position.
Yeah.
Because even though we're going to be planning ourselves in an ocean gyre or current doldrums, which is where the current is the slowest on the oceans,
Mm-hmm.
the current will still be between 0 to 1 mile an hour, which means over the course of the entire day, you'll still end up 10 miles in that direction. So you'll probably still need to have a ship's on engines turn on every once in a while just to maintain your position, so that everyone can still find you and you're always at the same place.
Okay, that works for me. Uh, what was the other thing? Oh, right, daily work, right? Well, that's one of the advantages of the ship. We'll get to what I personally subscribe later. Stay tuned. Anyways, okay, so your daily jobs. You might, let's suppose you want to. All right, the ship. Um, yeah, you go about your daily life. Are there any things that you, as a denizen of Freedom Haven, need to know as opposed to living on land? Like, okay, obviously you need to know, emergency procedures, I suppose. That's one thing. But apart from that, what else would someone living on Freedom Haven need to know to live there?
The only thing it's recommended that you know how to do those things. And like, for example, when you're
Hmm.
on a cruise ship, usually there's an hour or a couple minutes, sometime during the course of the cruise ship, where all of the people go through a drill, and they go to their put on the life preserver, go to the life, their the lifeboats, and kind of do a mock trial of what they would be like if they actually need to do something like that. And so we would have that as well, but it wouldn't be we wouldn't the people it'd be voluntary. We might do that like once a month or something, and just have a drill of different types.
Yeah, but
And also,
it's in everyone's interest to know how to save themselves. So
exactly,
I
yes.
I don't see anybody objecting to that.
But the only requirement for coming into Freedom Haven is just to abide by the Freedom Haven Constitution, which is essentially saying that you will not threaten anyone else's life, freedom, or property unless it is the minimum needed for self-defense. So basically, you won't
Mhm.
murder, kidnap, and steal, which sounds
Go
straightforward and
figure.
easy, but our society, our cultures are so based on doing these things that we don't even realize it. There's going to be some cultural um, adjustment that is needed as people have to adjust. Oh, wait, you mean I can't slap my wife? You mean I can't steal my neighbor's thing because they offended me, or can't break down their window, or just a lot of small things like that where we just have to like,
Someone
oh, I guess.
someone called me a name, I'll go punch him. Yeah, that
Exactly,
I can
exactly.
envision that. Yeah,
Now you
yeah.
probably wouldn't get into very much trouble. You'd probably have to like pay for their hospital bill or the Band-Aid or whatever it is, or maybe they won't
Mm.
trust you and you won't be allowed in a certain place anymore. But I mean, you'll have to fix whatever
You
it is you
might
break.
be a troublemaker. It might cause you problems if you're being aggressive, but generally, I envision like-minded individuals won't have this kind of problem. But I would like to ask you, Tony, another question I had myself. Well,
Sure.
this is a podcast after all. We can deviate a bit. Um, let's suppose a newborn is born on the Freedom Haven vessel, correct?
Hmm.
Okay.
This is a
When
good question.
exactly?
This is a good question.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. You can see it. Okay. So, the he or she grows up, right? At which point can we? Because this is going to be a voluntary, unlike the governments that
Hmm.
say, what was the thing Zach said? Do you remember? You accepted by silence. Could you remind me what it was
Oh,
called?
they said if you don't object to it, you're consenting,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
that one.
I don't subscribe to that.
Yeah, I know you don't. I do. You don't. But let's suppose, at which age does the man or woman living on Freedom Haven, right,
Uh-huh.
have to either sign on to the Constitution, or say I agree to abide by these rules, because until then he can't actually, he's under the protection of whatever parent is
Yep.
um on board the ship. So how does this
Yep.
work?
And that is actually a really good question, and that's something that um, we know in the Constitution we lay out, and I have it up open right here. Um,
The way I
and it
imagine the
really,
Constitution is everyone before boarding up, exactly like a pirate ship, right? And
mhm.
yay to piracy, good job. They knew how to do things back then. So
This movie was
everybody
not an
gathers
endorsement
up.
of piracy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Please don't, FBI, please don't put me in jail. Okay. Okay. So as I was saying, uh, everybody gathered up and they made their contract of for the voyage, right? And they said
Yep.
yar or nay, depending on if they were agreeing to. So I imagine all the future um, tenants of Freedom Haven to agree consensually to abide by the Constitution, yeah, we have created. But new members kind of complicates it,
It
especially if they
does.
are underage.
It does. The currently the well to be in Freedom Haven, you only need to consent to the Constitution. But Freedom Haven is actually multiple ships. Freedom Haven is just
Yeah,
a collection of ships. Where at the federal level, there is no government. There's only the Constitution. But at the vessel level, that's what we call a province, like what we in America call a state. Um, and each ship will have its own government, which will implement the Constitution and how they do it and so forth. Like for example, the main vessel we're designing, which is the new Liberty vessel, um, will people pay for their leases, and that's how they get a space on the ship. And everyone who comes on that ship either needs to either have a lease or be a guest of someone who has a lease, and that person who owns a lease will need to be able to have space and accommodations to house all their guests,
yeah, of course.
including the weight and so forth, because it's a ship. But um, if someone is born on Freedom Haven, first of all, they'd be living with their parents until they give it
Yeah,
up otherwise. But as far as consent, they haven't given consent on the Constitution, and consent is not assumed for anybody. But until, like, for example, there's a different age of consent for life, freedom, and property. Um, it's a good question. I don't know at what age people would be old enough to actually give their consent to the Constitution itself. But at that age, they would either need to give consent or they would need to leave. People would not be allowed to be in Freedom Haven who have not actually consented to it. And one of the restrictions for people coming onto the New Liberty is that you have to be able to show that you have the ability to go back, or do you have a reservation to go back to where you came from. And now having a two-way plane ticket or a two-way boat ticket, won't work for 10 years, whatever. So I think what will actually happen is people will probably pay for an insurance, and insurance will say, like, I'm put this much money down for insurance, and that insurance company will ensure that if I ever have to leave, whether I'm banished or I want to leave or whatever it is, I can go back to whatever place I designate as a place I want to be a destination, which means no person goes into Freedom Haven. No person goes into New Liberty, the vessel, that doesn't also have an ability to go home if they just push a button. So anytime they push a button, they can easily leave. They're not stranded there. They're not trapped there. That's what New Liberty is doing. Freedom Haven, other Freedom Haven vessels may do something different, but New Liberty is doing this, which means when you have that, insurance will probably also cover their children if they have any offspring as well, which means their children would have the choice of either accepting the Constitution or having a free trip, according to how that thing is set up, to go back to the country that they came from. And a lot of countries will have automatic citizenship, because if your parents are of a citizenship, then the children's automatically a citizenship. So let's say, I'm from Italy and I came to Freedom Haven, New Liberty, but my child does not want to be part of on New Liberty. They can exercise that thing and they go back to Italy with the citizenship.
Yeah, okay. That answers my question. Okay, what else do we have in store for our guests?
We have,
let's see.
the next item on the list is we started doing a virtual test group. We're actually meeting one-on-one using Cloudly with individual members to ask them a couple questions, what they think about the project, and learning from them. The pros, the cons, we can learn from each of them. And we've been meeting with a bunch of them, and it's been very helpful. And we'll continue to do so. And we actually have a segment at the very end of this podcast, which we may or may not get to. This whole thing's kind of, we're still learning this, where we actually talk about some of the things that we learned from those interactions. Because in the end of the day, we're selling a product. We're selling a product to the consumer, which is essentially we're selling freedom at the cheapest price possible, which is,
not cheap.
It's not cheap. It's not cheap.
Yeah.
I wish it was, but life on the sea is not cheap.
Well,
although we're finding ways to get cheaper.
Let's actually talk about cheapness, okay? Let's cross our swords on this one. Ship versus what was the thing?
The platform.
Concrete? Yes, that one.
Platform.
I subscribe to the platform. Tony
Yes.
looks like he likes his ship. I see.
And we did a poll on the group, and we're very surprised. Most of the people want a platform. Now, the pros and cons of both, lay them out really quick.
Oh, let's talk about it. Yeah.
The platform itself is cheaper. And what it basically is, there's a couple different ways to do that. Jedi Hill has a great concept of these plastic cylinders that are pretty light and pretty easy to handle. A bunch of hollow plastic cylinders that are about 20 feet tall, and those will fit into each other and slide and become one solid unit. And that comes out to about the same cost per square foot as what my plan is, which is basically have these basalt fiber reinforced concrete spheres that are basically two spheres deep, and the reinforcement structure itself is the shape of an icosahedron, which is a 12-sided triangle. Mm-hmm. For those who want to have fun nerding out on that one, 20-sided die. It's two layers. So basically, that even if the inside of the sphere gets a hole and leaks, the whole structure will still float, because in essence you have 20 individual compartments that have air. So, and that's enough to actually keep the whole thing afloat, even if the main inside gets flooded with water. And then that sphere is encased inside of a hexagon prism. And that hexagon prism then, and we'll pop up pictures so you can see it here as well. The hexagon prism will then allow you to all fit together and form a large field. There's pros and cons to this approach versus the plastic one.
Let's talk about exactly what I was referring to. Okay. Let's talk about these pros and cons. I understand it's exciting, talking about the stuff, but to me, I don't know about shipbuilding. I don't know about these platforms. I'm certain it's super interesting learning about them, but until I've done it, I can't actually say I'm really interested in that. No offense to you, Tony. Let's
Yep.
talk about pros and cons. So, why do most people apparently from Freedom Haven, prefer the platform? It seems instead of the ship, and we've talked about it, but let's talk about it with more audience, I suppose. Tony, you,
I, I believe people want to actually own their property, and
yeah,
it gives them something that's cheaper. The area it's per square foot is about one quarter the cost, which
mm,
is substantial. It's more
yes,
expensive
no,
to live in the ship than it is to live on these flat surfaces.
yeah.
Um,
Well, you have
but
to pay for the platform, the actual
yep.
platform. So that's the thing before you even build anything on it. So
Mhm.
again, it's cheaper than the build. Do you have to pay for the container too on the ship, or that's included?
No, no, no. You don't have to.
No,
You can do just the platform, or you can do just the ship, or whatever you want. But if you're on a
no. I'm asking.
platform,
I'm asking if the cost of the ship, right, is
includes
this
a
is
container.
yeah, includes the container. Yeah.
It does. It does.
Ah, it does. Okay.
A default one.
A
You can
different one.
add
Okay.
to it, but the default one will have all the hookups and a basic sink and toilet. Nothing
Well,
fancy. But then you can build onto it and do whatever you want with it, or
so
you could
basically, one
submit
fourth
your
the
design ahead
price.
of time and we build it.
One fourth the price for uh, the platform, but you still have to provide for all the amenities
Yes,
yourself. And you also have to, well, that's exactly what we were talking about. You also have, apart from the amenities, which you again you have to maintain the platform, and then you have to know what you're doing because you're out in the middle of the sea, and land is
you are the
safer than
captain.
sea. Yeah, you're the
You
captain
have to
of
be
your
your own
vessel.
captain,
Yeah. But
or more
it does
specific.
come with its pros, to be honest. Yeah, you don't
Definitely.
have to follow the constitution, but that's the point. The entire point of the platform is to gather up a lot of people, hook up their platforms, and everybody gets to enjoy. There is economies of scale basically built into this system, which I think most people find attractive when compared to the ship.
And the
Also, from yeah, go ahead.
And the platform has to be a certain size to actually work, because if you have just one of them out there by itself, it'll still stay upright, but it'll wobble and stuff until you get a whole bunch of them connected together. It's more stable. I mean, they'll all stay above the water. They just they'll. I mean, if you put a beach ball on the ocean, it's gonna rotate and stuff. And you have to connect a whole bunch of them together. And the more you do that, the more stable it is in the waves. Even though we're going to go in a location where it's very calm and we won't have hardly any waves, when those storms come, those once a year, whatever, how frequently those storms come, and once every 10 years where you have the maximum wave height, of 5 meters, make sure that we're ready for that. We're always planning for the worst possible weather, even though most of the time it would be fair weather.
Yeah, okay. That works for me. There is also the point of these platforms. Yes, apart from maintenance, they're gonna require, uh, which is also another cost you have to take into account. The ship, as you said, on the leases, yeah, it's only 10 years or 20 years, and then it's going to rot.
Yep.
Or well, yeah, which is a problem I see with most people. Um, because let's say you build a ship and then 20 years pass and then we can build a better ship. You just
Yep.
sunk your entire fortune into this. The platform, given that it's cheaper, you can then upgrade it with, I suppose you can upgrade it with better parts or, whatever the newest hottest thing is to make platforms with. So given provided that they are popular, they become popular, a popular way to do the seasteading thing. Well, apart from that, I think the platforms win. I'm more on board on the platforms idea, and they seem to be more readily. You can implement them faster. You
Yes.
can R&D them faster. Well, at least
What
so we can get them on the sea faster is what I'm trying to get to, which I think why most people chose them. Okay, not this particular reason, but this is also a point for the platforms. You can get it out to sea faster. That's what I'm trying to get it at.
You can implement it faster, yeah.
Yeah,
Instead of having to wait for Samsung Heavy Industries
yeah,
to build
exactly.
the ship for us, and
Or
get in
well,
waiting line for
they'll
that.
they'll even tell you if it's going to get it's going to be up to the task. They're shipwrights, right? they'll know if the specific purpose of the ship is up to the task, and then they'll build it for you. But yeah, I stopped you, Tony. What were you saying?
Oh no, that I don't remember what I was going to say. There's some pros and cons with the building the comparing between the plastic and the concrete. The plastic is easier to hold. I mean, Jedi would mention that one of these 20-foot tall things, you actually take these cylinders, and a strong man can actually lift it up all by himself and go and put it in place all by himself. You can't do that with a concrete one. The concrete one will weigh, was it
Concrete.
300, 400 tons. If I'm doing this from memory, I don't remember what it was. So it's incredibly heavy. Not as heavy as the water, obviously, because it will float, but it's still going to be incredibly heavy and very large. So it's going to be one of those things where you build it in the water and it will never get out of the water unless you have a dry dock somewhere. But you wouldn't really need to, because it won't have any steel in it. I mean, it's basalt fiber reinforced concrete, which means it will never rust. It will never degrade. This thing could be around for 100+ years.
Well,
Or longer.
you have to account for any sea life that actually ends up. You're aware of the ships that they need to actually coat them with some kind of paint that kills any life that's trying to get
Agents,
under
yeah.
there. Yeah. So and that's basically upping. Whatever things end up being on the keel of the ship, they actually cost you fuel. Of course, we're not going to be moving much, but over the course of time, there might be adding up a lot of weight under your ship, so you might need to take into account that part too, at least on your platform.
And one of the disadvantages of the platform versus the ship is that you have a large flat open area, which is advantage to people because everyone is living underneath the sky, which is nice on calm days. When the storm's coming, that means that everyone's being hit by the storm. But the bad side of that is that you have a larger surface area of the water, which means maintaining this platform in the same location. Again, even though the ocean current will be between 0 and 1 mile per hour, very slow, you'll still be burning through a lot more fuel than you will be on the ship per square foot to accommodate that, because you have a lot more drag on the ocean than you do on the ship, because the ship is obviously designed to have water. Even though the current design is basically a big block, there's actually less surface area on that than there is on the large field for each square foot, because you have one long level instead of 17 floors in one compact location. So you'll end up having to pay more per month for maintenance and to keep you in that location, and you don't have the economies of scale, which means that you might have 8 of you gathered together, and one person has a desalination plant, and that desalination plant will cost you this much per gallon per water, or however you want to do that, and that works, but you're going to spend much more per gallon than you would if you were on the main vessel, where there's economies of scale have optimized that much more. So on the ship, you'll have less room, you'll have a higher population density, but the month-to-month life will be cheaper than it would be on the platform. But you won't actually own the place, you'll be renting it. And after 10 years, you have to pay for another rent and keep it going because it's only 10 years, whereas the platform you own forever. So there's pros and cons either way.
Yeah. I subscribe more to own it forever. I understand. But yeah, we have to talk about costs, because at the end of the day, if it's too expensive to actually live, there is no point. I'll just continue living on land and suck up to it. If it costs, if I'm basically, okay, let me put it this way. In some places, right, rent is absurd, right? Let's say I make 10,000 euros, rent is 3,000. It could happen. Places like, and if that, I don't, it's one thing I want to avoid. Of course, there's more freedom, but if I end up paying, I'm basically limiting myself in terms of, I've made many sacrifices already on the ship. I expect it to be a bit cheaper,
Yes.
And that's what most people would, I think, would generally agree with me on that. Yeah.
And
so that's a problem.
Many things would be cheaper. There would be some things like food. A good example is to compare with Hawaii. Most of the food that Hawaii uses, they import. They don't actually grow their food
Hmm.
locally. Although there will be people that will be growing food locally in Freedom Haven, as far as the economy goes, I think that having a small local farm, for example, one thing I found very surprising when I moved to Keokuk, because I've always lived in big cities. When I moved to Keokuk, the produce at the local farm stands here in this small town was actually more expensive than the same produce you would buy at the store. And I was like, well, wait a second, you're buying it at the local farmer. Why would it be more expensive? Well, because it's not economies of scale, and for them to make it profitable, it actually costs a lot more money, and it's more fresh, and so they could charge more. But it usually costs like twice as much as opposed to what you buy at the store. So there will be local farmers that'll be growing algae-based foods, fish, hatcheries, or whatever.
Thankfully, there won't be a shortage of fish.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there'll be a lot of locally produced food, but that food will probably cost more than just importing the food. So, like in Hawaii, Hawaii produces a lot of food locally as well, but it's cheaper for Hawaii to actually import most of its food. It has a Costco store, and you can buy milk and everything else there, and most of it's being imported. Um, the the cost isn't as much more as you'd expect. It's more expensive, but not like maybe
Not
50% more.
prohibitively expensive.
Yes, because this is what the thing is fascinating about container shipping is that it costs less money to ship a banana halfway around the world than it does to ship an apple to a neighboring state. And people are like, well, how can that be the case? The distance is so different. Why would an apple cost more to ship than a banana? Well, because an apple is shipped on a truck, and like a truck has two 20-foot container ships, 22 TEUs, sorry, two 20-foot container 20-foot equivalent units, or basically two TEUs. And one truck driver is slowly driving that. And although they get to the destination faster, a container ship has 24,000 TEUs. And so the economies of scale mean that you can ship something halfway around the world for an entire container's worth of stuff for $1,000 or so, and it costs more per container on the truck than it does for the ship. So basically, that's how you can get bananas at the store for as cheap as the apples, even though the apple came from next door and the banana came all the way from South America or some other place in another part of the world. And because of that, you understand, realize that food won't be that expensive. The food that we import wouldn't be as expensive as you think it is, because a lot of the foods we have right now are already coming from halfway around the world. They'll just be going to different destinations. So instead of going to Greece, they'll go to Freedom Haven, which is on the way there.
Yeah. Well, another thing you have to account for, unlike the the ship, you will actually have to have an apartment building type of contract, I suppose, because you have the platforms around you. You're all expending fuel to stay on the same spot, and again, somebody might enjoy it 5 meters this way, another one. So you have to agree on, and there is also the problem of stressing your neighbors. Hey, that guy's spending less fuel. That guy's spending more
Yep.
fuel. This might um, either figure things out, or I don't know, get sales. Get sales. I don't know. Go figure. So this is another thing that you will have to find out with other people, uh, and you're basically, again, you're going to the. Thankfully, though, it's going to be a consensual agreement between people. So I think most things will pan out. That is on the platforms, on the New Liberty vessel. Yeah, it's going to be a lot simpler, if you
And no
ask
matter
me.
and no matter what solution you end up going with, you're going to end up paying rent.
Yeah,
Even if you own the platform, you're still going to have to pay some kind of monthly fee to keep yourself in that location. I mean, if,
yeah,
if you don't pay that fee and you say, well, the doldrums aren't that fast and I'll be fine, but yeah, New Year's Day, you're going to find yourself washed up on some beach or inside of some other country's territorial waters. Their coast guards are going to come out and say, by the way, you're part of our country now, so you're going to have to abide by our laws, and here's the fees and taxes and so forth, and you've lost your freedom. What's the point? So you have to be
yeah,
able to maintain yourself in that same location, which means a monthly fee, which is going to be bigger than, and actually New Liberty, the fee is included in the lease.
release.
Um, but there's no solution for living out on the sea that does not involve a monthly rent. A lot of people talk about wanting to live for free, and some people do that, but they exert so much effort, manual effort on their own, and have to find so many other
Amounts?
supplies
Ah,
just
supplies.
to make it work. And it doesn't. It's not really scalable,
Mm.
economically scalable. Like one example is the guy who made an entire island out of recycled bottles. I think that's in Mexico somewhere, and that's impressive. He basically spent all his time collecting all these discarded bottles everywhere around it, and he probably got them all up and tied them together in bags and made this little floating island. He charges people like $5 to come out and actually spend time on the island. But if people say, "Oh, look, that was free," I was like, "Well, not really. He's actually spent a lot of money on the bags and all the other things to make this thing work, and he put so much time and effort into actually collecting the bottles that it would have been cheaper for him to actually order the bottles or other things. There's economies of scale where time is money, and when you do a lot of effort to do something that is free, it may actually end up costing more money than if you just paid for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Time is money. Yes, that is indeed true in this case too. Okay, what else do we have
One
in
thing we did
store?
in March as well is we um, spent a lot of time preparing for the March 5th meeting. We did advertising, and um, I spent hours canvassing all of this area to see if we can find a bunch of local people that'd be interested in seasteading. Um, and
Oh yeah,
that
that
actually,
was a month ago, right?
yep, that was a month ago,
Yeah. Okay.
and that was a
That
flop.
didn't pan out. Yeah.
And we had some people show up, but they were just friends who were helping out. There really isn't that much interest of seasteading here in this Keokuk area, unfortunately.
Oh yeah. I can't imagine here. Mm, yeah. I'm not gonna even try. Actually.
It is definitely a niche market, and if I had known better, I wouldn't have wasted. I wasted like $50 on advertising for that. Um,
Yeah.
and we've been doing some t-shirt design, logos. Some people mentioned that we should create t-shirts, and we haven't actually um, done much with that actual design yet, but we've come up with a couple of cool logos.
If you're
Um,
streaming them, I can't see them, but yeah.
oh
Okay.
yeah. I don't have any pictures. It's just a couple of slogans. Um, that like Hong Kong's loss of freedom is tragic. Let's build a new Hong Kong out of China's jurisdiction. You know,
Yeah.
just freedom haven, love freedom, help us build a haven of liberty. I want freedom. I will move to Freedom Haven. Life on Earth is short. If I live knowing that people have a haven of freedom to flee to, I'll go out with a smile. A couple shorter ones like willing to move for freedom. I support the Freedom Haven Project and the building of their new Liberty vessel. Um, Official patron. Um, a couple of things like that. Um,
Okay. Okay.
Taxation is
Since
theft.
we're reaching, yeah. Okay. I like this one. Okay. I think we're reaching an end to our timer, but before we part ways, there's actually another thing I would like to talk about. If I remember what it was. What else do we have in store? I
Oh,
think I
we have a bunch of stuff. We've only gone for like half the list, but this
Oh
is a
yeah, right.
test run. So
Porkfest. Right. So you're going to Porkfest, correct, Tony?
yes,
Okay, I think you will find much support there. Not a lot of people have actually searched up seasteading, so it would be a nice wake up call for them to know that this thing exists because not many places on the planet are actually free, much less land. We have actually talked about it. We'll talk about it next time we do the podcast. So stay tuned. What was
awesome.
it? Yeah. So yeah, Porkfest, right?
Hmm.
I think you'll find much more um, reciprocating audience. No, I don't think that's the correct word.
Fellow
Uh,
libertarians, people who also
yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
more. Oh, what's the word? Yeah, not reciprocal.
No. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I know what you're talking about. There's a word for that. A
yeah.
more
There's a
they're open to it. They're more
Yeah, exactly.
it connects with them.
Yeah.
There's about 3,000 people that show up recently, in the last 2 years. Each year it gets bigger, but they have a maximum because they can only actually have 2,500 people at the physical location because of the campsite. The campsite is maxed out. In fact, actually, I got like one of the last 3 or 4 spots that I was like, there's like I only got I got a spot, and it was like one of the last 3 or 4 that was available, because it fills up so quickly.
Why can't
So you
you
end up with
like?
about 3,000 people there.
Why can't you do? Why don't they do? Okay, let's say they max out. Can't you do something? What was it called? The uh,
Camping,
oh, come on.
outhouses.
No, not camping. Renting. You know, you rent a close house. You
Oh yeah,
just stay
they've
there.
done that.
Yeah, yeah.
They maxed out all the hotels, all the motels,
Oh,
the whole
that
town.
too.
Everything's
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
The campground can hold 2,500 people. The local motel can hold like what? I'm guessing here, 100.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and as far as scales, nothing is as big as this campground in that local area. And you can have more people who are camping in the woods and other places, but really, what it comes down to is what the real limitation is the infrastructure, the septic systems, the water, the
Mm.
electricity. It just
Oh,
can't
look,
handle that
amenities
many
again.
people.
You can't. You can't get away from them.
Yes, you need the
Yeah,
utilities.
yeah.
um, which is actually one of the reasons why I'm going with my van, and I'm actually going to bring my own electric generator, my own gas, water
Mm,
purification, all that stuff, just in case. So if there's ever a
yeah.
need for that, I can be helpful to the people around me.
Ah, that's nice. Okay. I think that's enough for today. Don't you agree,
Okay.
Tony?
Yeah, it was great.
Right. Yeah. Well, I hope our listeners find. I assume you don't watch us, but yeah, viewers slash listeners enjoyed this talk, and we hope to do it again.
And
We'll
please
listen
let
to
us
your
know what you
feedback.
think in the comments below, and
Yeah,
how we can make this more interesting or better.
yeah, that would be helpful. It's literally our first time doing podcast,
Yes.
so yeah, any pointers are helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.